Xylar, the Star Devourer, had existed for millennia beyond count. Its consciousness had witnessed the birth and death of 1,000 galaxies. It had consumed neutron stars for breakfast and had woven nebulae into cosmic tapestries with nothing more than a passing thought. Civilizations across countless star systems whispered its name in terror if they dared speak it at all. Some had built temples to appease it. Others had developed doomsday weapons in futile attempts to ward off. None had succeeded. When Xylar manifested, reality itself bent to accommodate its presence. Space-time rippled like water, and the laws of physics became mere suggestions rather than absolutes. Stars dimmed in its presence, as if cowering. Gravity trembled. Today, Xylar approached a small, unremarkable asteroid at the edge of a nondescript galaxy. On this asteroid sat a relatively new human outpost, the Interstellar Transit and Customs Station. It was a hodgepodge of modular structures, hastily assembled with the practical but inelegant efficiency typical of human expansion efforts. Atmospheric generators hummed, creating a thin bubble of breathable air around the collection of prefabricated buildings and landing pads. Xylar had no particular interest in this station. It was merely passing through the sector, perhaps intending to consume a small, uninhabited moon nearby as a light snack. The cosmic entity expected what always happened when it approached inhabited areas: panic, worship, or the deafening silence of a universe holding its breath. Space-time would naturally part before it, reality would bend, and Xylar would continue on its eternal journey unimpeded. Inside the main processing building of the station, Kevin Sharma sat at his desk labeled Non-Standard Entity Processing, with slumped shoulders and the glazed expression of someone halfway through a 12-hour shift. A lukewarm cup of synthetic coffee sat at his elbow, forgotten hours ago. His uniform, a gray jumpsuit with the Interstellar Transit Authority insignia, was slightly rumpled, and he had loosened the collar. A holographic display flickered before him, showing various entry and exit permits, customs declarations, and the occasional alert about prohibited substances or contraband. His fingers danced over the interface with the practiced efficiency of someone who had processed thousands of travelers. Then, reality shuddered. The air in the station seemed to thicken. Lights flickered and dimmed. The walls appeared to breathe, expanding slightly before contracting. A pressure built in everyone's ears, as if they had suddenly descended deep underwater. Sharma's coffee cup began to levitate slightly above the desk surface. Xylar manifested in the center of the processing area, not in physical form, for such a form would be incomprehensible and destructive to human minds, but as a writhing mass of darkness and light, with occasional glimpses of cosmic fire and the cold emptiness of deep space. Its presence filled the room, an aurora of terrible power, a visual representation of its consciousness reaching into this small pocket of reality. Around the entity, space itself warped. Colors that had no names in any human language pulsed and swirled. The temperature fluctuated wildly, freezing cold one moment, scorching hot the next. Several electronic devices sparked and died. Other beings in the customs area, a pair of methane-breathing traders from the Rigel system, a silicon-based entity from the Andromeda Galaxy, and a small group of human researchers, pressed themselves against the walls, their instincts screaming for escape from this incomprehensible power. Xylar waited, anticipating the usual response: terror, submission, perhaps the occasional foolish attack from those who didn't understand what they faced. Instead, Agent Sharma looked up from his terminal. His eyes widened slightly at the cosmic display, but he merely sighed, glanced at his now floating coffee cup with mild annoyance, and addressed the entity. "Name and point of origin," he asked, his voice impressively steady despite the reality distortions happening around him. Xylar's consciousness roiled and churned. This was unexpected. After a moment's hesitation, it responded, its voice a cacophony of sounds that somehow formed words. The death cries of stars, the birth sounds of black holes, the whispers of cosmic radiation. "I am Xylar, the Star Devourer, the weaver of cosmic tapestries, the ancient one who walked between galaxies when your kind still cowered in caves. I have consumed 1,000 worlds and will consume 1,000 more. Sharma's eyes flicked to his display, which was somehow still functioning despite the entity's disruptive presence. He typed something, then nodded. Right, Xyler. Purpose for transit through Sector 7G? He asked, as if processing an elderly tourist rather than an entity that could unmake reality with a thought. Xyler, momentarily thrown off by this mundane response, replied with slightly less cosmic resonance. I pass through your insignificant sector on my eternal journey. I may consume the small moon orbiting the gas giant in your system as sustenance. Sharma nodded again, typing, All right, standard transit or resource consumption. Transit Q is to the left, resource collection/consumption is to the right. He pointed to two haphazard lines of various beings. Consumption Q is a bit backed up today, I'm afraid. Space worms are filing paperwork for their annual migration festival. You'll need Form 881C. Xyler's manifestation flickered with confusion. The cosmic entity hovered in place, its reality-warping aura pulsing with what might have been interpreted as bewilderment. A. Q? For IT? Paperwork? Sharma peered past Xyler at the beings waiting behind the cosmic entity. Next, he called. A sentient blob of plasma wobbled forward eagerly. Sharma sighed. Look, sir/madam/entity, you need to pick a line. You're holding up the space worm's paperwork. He gestured impatiently, waving his hand through the air. Get in line. Xyler, the the ancient one, the cosmic terror that had reduced entire civilizations to dust with mere thoughts, was being told to wait in line. The cosmic entity's form seethed with building rage. Millennia of being feared, worshipped, and avoided had not prepared it for bureaucracy. Yet, as its anger built, Xyler noticed something unusual. The other beings around it, even those who had initially cowered in fear, were now watching the exchange with something like resigned amusement. Xyler took a moment to survey the line Sharma had indicated. The right-hand Q, resource collection/consumption, stretched toward the far wall, filled with an assortment of beings from across the universe. Some were impressive in their own right, a paradox entity that consumed time itself, leaving strange temporal eddies in its wake, a collective mind from the Andromeda Galaxy that existed simultaneously across 17 dimensions, even what appeared to be a minor chaos deity whose form constantly shifted and bubbled. Yet all of them, powerful, ancient, incomprehensible as some were, stood patiently or impatiently, judging by the occasional grumble, in line. Outraged by this affront to its cosmic dignity, Xyler decided a demonstration of power was in order. With barely a thought, it reached out and briefly altered the fabric of reality around a nearby asteroid. For approximately 12 seconds, the uninhabited rock performed a perfect rendition of a human opera, Mozart's The Magic Flute, to be specific, complete with coloratura soprano notes emanating from its crater formations. Without looking up from his screen, Sharma spoke, Entity Xyler, please refrain from unauthorized reality manipulation in the queuing area. That could constitute a violation of Form 12, disturbing the public order through metaphysical disruption. A small drone hovered over, projecting the relevant regulation into the air above Xyler's manifestation. The cosmic entity's aura dimmed slightly, like a child caught misbehaving. With what could only be described as cosmic reluctance and burning indignation, Xyler moved to join the right-hand queue, positioning itself behind a particularly odorous space worm representative clutching a crumpled stack of papers. The space worm, a 30-foot, iridescent creature that somehow existed partially in hyperspace, twisted its anterior segment around and regarded Xyler with compound eyes that reflected the cosmos itself. First time, it asked, its voice surprisingly melodious for something that resembled an interdimensional earthworm. Xyler did not deign to respond, but the space worm continued anyway. The environmental impact report is the worst part. it said conversationally. Make sure you correctly estimate the gravitational disruption radius. Last cycle, MGLR Thep, the world eater, underestimated by 2 decimal places and got hit with a compliance remediation order. Had to reconstruct an entire asteroid belt. Nightmare. Despite its desire to maintain aloof cosmic dignity, Xyler found itself listening to the conversations around it in the queue. And then they said my planetary consumption permit was invalid because I'd listed the mass in local measurement units instead of standard kiloparsec densities, complained of being composed entirely of dark matter to its companion. Always get the express processing if you can, advise another entity, this one appearing as a constantly shifting geometric shape. Submit 3 copies in approved multidimensional ink, and they'll fast-track you. Is this your first form? Asked a small, nervous-looking deity clutching a stack of papers. The nameplate hovering above its head identified it as Thrix, god of minor inconveniences, probationary status. Before Xyler could decide whether to acknowledge the lesser deity, an ancient, cynical-looking entity behind it spoke up. This being appeared as a swirling vortex of stars and cosmic dust, but somehow managed to convey the impression of a grizzled bureaucracy veteran. The whole Gamma Rho Alpha Phi Epsilon Iota Omicron Kappa Rho Tau Eta system is annoying as hell, the ancient entity grumbled, but I'll give the humans this much. It works. Last Tuesday, the Chaos Lords tried to turn Sector 6B into a Klein bottle filled with sentient orange marmalade. The paperwork stopped them cold. Damned effective, I have to admit. Xyler's cosmic consciousness expanded slightly, taking in the full scope of the station and the system it represented. This wasn't an aberration, the cosmic entity realized. This was an established order, one that apparently even entities as powerful as Chaos Lords were complying with. The line shuffled forward. Hours passed, or perhaps millennia. It was sometimes difficult for cosmic entities to track time on such small scales. Finally, Xyler reached the front of the queue and drifted toward Sharma's desk. The human looked up expectantly. Form 881C. Xyler, shaper of galaxies, had no such form. Sharma's sigh was audible and profound. Right, newcomer. Head over to Kiosk 3 over there, resource collection and consumption intent and impact assessment. Fill out the 881C and preliminary environmental assessment, Form 902E. Oh, and you'll need proof of entity registration, Form 1A, or temporary identity registration with Form 1T. Xyler's manifestation flickered with what might have been interpreted as disbelief. Nevertheless, it moved toward the indicated kiosk, a holographic interface floating above a small pedestal. The interface was bewilderingly Earth-centric in its logic and design. Xyler, whose consciousness could simultaneously comprehend the quantum states of every particle in a star system, found itself struggling with drop-down menus and input fields. The form asked for an estimated debris field radius in standard kilometers and potential for disruption to local sentient entity traffic, scale 1 to 10. It required Xyler to categorize its consumption method as absorption, disintegration, transmutation, or other. Please specify. When the cosmic entity attempted to select other and specify reality erasure and cosmic digestion, the system returned an error, invalid input. Please use approved terminology from the Cosmic Entity Interaction Lexicon, SEAL, Appendix J. After what felt like several small eternities, Xyler completed the forms and returned to the processing counter. Now it needed to pay the application processing fee. Sharma looked expectantly at the cosmic entity. That'll be 7.34 standard credits, plus the intergalactic energy conversion tax. Xyler, who had never needed anything as mundane as currency in its eternal existence, hesitated. After a moment, it reached into its own essence and extracted a tiny fragment of a captured star, a piece of fusion-powered cosmic material that glowed with the light of creation itself. Sharma ran a scanner over it. This comes to about 7.34 standard credits, minus the energy conversion tax. Perfect. He pressed a button, and a small printer beside his desk hummed to life. While waiting, Xyler observed a minor deity attempting to bribe Sharma with eternal happiness. The human merely pointed to a sign: bribery attempts, metaphysical or otherwise, mandatory submission of Form 459B, and standard penalty application. The deity wilted visibly and shuffled off to yet another kiosk. Xyler was experiencing a strange new sensation: administrative anxiety. What if it had filled out the forms incorrectly? What would the consequences be? Could it be denied permission to consume a small moon it could erase from existence with a mere thought? Entity Xyler? Sharma called, holding out a stack of process forms. Your preliminary assessment has been accepted. Now, please proceed to secondary assessment area, booth H47, for compliance audit. The cosmic entity's manifestation dimmed slightly with what might have been cosmic dismay. The secondary assessment area was even more mundane than the main processing center. Faded posters about responsible reality warping and prevent time paradoxes through proper scheduling adorned the walls. A looping instructional video explained the importance of maintaining cosmic equilibrium through administrative oversight. Xyler found itself in yet another waiting area, surrounded by other entities undergoing audits. A minor reality bender was being lectured about exceeding their miracle manifestation quota. A primordial entity was being questioned about unauthorized creation of smaller beings, protozoa classification. After another indeterminate period, a new human appeared, a cheerfully terrifying woman equipped with a multidimensional clipboard. Her nameplate read, Eleanor Pringle, Compliance Audit Specialist, Class 2. Entity Xyler? I'm MS. Pringle. I'll be handling your compliance audit today, she said with bureaucratic enthusiasm that somehow managed to be more intimidating than cosmic rage. Let's go over your resource consumption intent declaration, shall we? MS. Pringle led Xyler to a small booth containing a desk and 2 chairs. The cosmic entity hovered above one chair, its manifestation condensing slightly to fit the space. Now, MS. Pringle began, flipping through holographic pages on her clipboard. I see you're planning to consume the third moon of the gas giant in Sector 7G. Let's discuss the cosmic resource management protocols applicable to this case. What followed was the most comprehensive, detail-oriented, and thoroughly mundane examination of cosmic consumption Xyler had ever experienced. Not that it had ever experienced such an examination before. MS. Pringle pointed out inconsistencies in Xyler's debris field estimates. She suggested alternative snack options that would cause less disruption: a rogue asteroid, a designated energy cloud. She handed over a brochure titled Planetary Consumption Impact Reduction Workshop. Next session, Stardate 2874.6. Xyler, gritting its metaphysical teeth, found itself discussing optimal consumption trajectories to minimize orbital disruption and filling out modified forms. Now, regarding the debris containment bond and post-consumption environmental remediation plan, MS. Pringle continued, bringing up yet another holographic form. Entities consuming celestial bodies over Class C size are required to provide assurance that any resulting debris will not impact local space lanes or inhabited areas. I do not leave debris, Xyler intoned, its voice causing the lights to flicker. I consume utterly and completely. MS. Pringle made a note. Excellent. Then you'll qualify for the Complete Consumption Tax Credit, Form 1099-CC. That's a 0.25 credit reduction in your processing fee. She beamed as if she'd just delivered wonderful news. Now, about the temporal displacement attestation. The thoroughness of the human system was becoming, if not less offensive, then inevitable, perhaps even impressive in its own terrifying way. The cosmic entity that had witnessed the birth of galaxies was being systematically processed, categorized, and regulated by creatures whose ancestors had been single-celled organisms when Xyler first gained consciousness. After many hours, or subjective eons, of auditing and form modification, MS. Pringle finally stamped her approval on Xyler's modified application. Approved. Standard celestial body consumption permit. Class 3, small moon. Valid for 1 local cycle. Please ensure all debris is contained as per the appendix to Form 1012G. Happy consuming. Xyler received the stamped permit. It felt anticlimactic. The cosmic rage had subsided into a strange fatigue and reluctant acceptance. As the entity prepared to leave, it observed Agent Sharma dealing with a newly arrived entity, a being of pure, blinding light that proclaimed itself to be the true creator of this universe. Sharma, wiping his glasses, responded, "Creator, you say, right? Do you have your creation event registration paperwork? Form 0A, and proof of compliance with the Universal Constant Stability Agreement? No? Then you'll need to join the unregistered Primordial Forces queue over there." He pointed. "Just get in line, please." Xyler watched as the creator seemed to deflate slightly and moved toward the indicated queue. The cosmic entity departed the station, permit clutched in its metaphysical grasp. It located the designated small moon. It could simply vaporize it. Permits and regulations were, after all, merely human constructs that had no real power over a being like Xyler. Instead, it found itself calculating trajectories, considering debris fields. Following the approved plan, the universe hadn't grown smaller, but it had become considerably more managed. Raw power still existed, but its application now involved procedures. Perhaps there was a certain efficiency in that. Or perhaps Xyler simply didn't want to face MS. Pringle over a compliance violation. The age of gods might not be over, but the age of divine administrative oversight had certainly begun. The cosmic entity consumed its permitted moon precisely according to regulations, leaving not a single unpermitted particle of debris. As it departed the sector, Xyler found itself wondering about the next cycle's paperwork and whether consumption permits could be renewed online. The formless cosmic horror that had once induced madness at the mere whisper of its name was now, against all odds, a law-abiding consumer of celestial resources with the properly filed permits to prove it. In the administrative office of the Interstellar Transit and Customs Station, Kevin Sharma added Xyler's completed case file to the system, assigned it a compliance rating surprisingly high for a first-time filer, and called out to the next entity in line. "Next, please." Name and point of origin. The bureaucratic machine ground on, processing deities and demons, cosmic horrors and creation forces, one form at a time. The universe continued, not in chaos, but in meticulously documented order.